a video came up on my YouTube
Done.
last week, and it was called "Why All Video Tutorials on Game Development Are Lying to You." And the guy's opening statement was, "They're not teaching you optimization. You need to know that before you do anything else." And I just turned it off because no, optimization is important.
Yep.
But you don't do it at the beginning.
I think that's a fool's errand if you start optimizing right at the very beginning. If you're creating an asset in Blender and you don't know quite, you're still developing the style for the game that you're working on, or even the style for just the scene you're working on. Let's say you're working on a very simple barrel. So you make the barrel, and you could spend 10 minutes. Okay, cylinder, bend it in a little at the top, put some rings around it, inset the top and bottom. Okay, brilliant. We're done. Next model. And you can get through maybe 20 or 30 models in that working day. And you've got kind of a scene, you can move things around, and then you can start to improve the look afterwards. However, or I could, for instance, I could have handed those off to Jan. He said, "Oh, they're awesome. Can I have 4 of these instead of those set of models there?" Or I could have spent that time modeling a hyper-realistic barrel with 4K textures everywhere, and Jan's going, "What you got, Mike?" And I went, "I got a barrel.
I can't put these in my game,
but it's optimized. But it's optimized." So you can. I mean, there is a balance. You shouldn't deliberately do things that are going to cause you problems.
You should have best practices, right? You shouldn't be bringing in poly counts that are too high. You shouldn't be writing code that's obnoxious and not human readable and too slow and yada yada yada. But at the beginning of the process, optimization is not your focus. At the beginning of the process, your focus is creating the system.
Yeah, you need a minimum viable product. Does the game play well? And ultimately, when we started with the action RPG, we were just moving a capsule around the level. That there wasn't a character at any point. In fact, there wasn't really a level. It was like, how's the movement feel? Okay, that's good. Okay, we need to get some animations in, because once you got to the point where you've got a character, we've got the character sliding around the level. Always looks funny. Obviously, it doesn't look right, doesn't feel right. Then you got the player running around, and you're like, well, we need to tweak the animations at this point. And once you start adding on the other layers that people often forget about when it comes to game development, it's not just about modeling something, sticking it in a game, and coding it. That's like the real basics. After that, when you say, "Oh, okay, we need some animations," so you rig the model, you animate it, you go, "Well, this is starting to poke through. Our character's running, and their sword keeps chopping their leg off." Again, this is an optimization step you probably want to miss at this point, because if later on, literally a few days later in the process, we're going to change the sword type. You change that sword type, it's no longer or you do something like that. You don't need to optimize your game, otherwise you end up in this cyclic hell, essentially, of just working.
I mean,
the
other way
people
things have tried to solve that, and I think the biggest example of this is Deus Ex, like the remake. Where they planned out the entire game before they wrote any code.
Yeah.
Which meant that they couldn't adapt. And that could be a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, there are parts of that game that maybe could have been better if there'd been a lot more fluid in their in the development process.
I mean, I have that particular issue when writing a course. So I will generally write down the curriculum, what the end goal is at this point in the course, what the end goal is for the entire course. And then you start planning out the lectures. You find the final stages. So your midpoint, you're going to make this, and then you're going to do that with it. And then you start the process of teaching it. And suddenly you find that, actually, if we take this path rather than that path, it's a much better learning journey. So I think this applies to anything creative, that trying to go to a final product quickly is it can be effective if you're lucky, or if you're very experienced. And I think this is something key to put out there. If you were an experienced artist, you could pretty much start. I remember my friend Andy from school. He was a phenomenal artist, and so was his brother. And watching them like draw an elephant, they would just start drawing the elephant. I mean, their experience, they've done it time and time again. And when I say elephant, it was like a photo by the time it was finished with their shading and everything. But they didn't have to do the classic owl. Draw one circle, draw another circle, draw the owl. But those outline shapes, those blocks of detail that you slowly iterate towards a final product, enable you to take that step by step approach, and that, as you were alluding to with Deus Ex, there allow you to make course corrections, which are really important when you're developing a game, because games are big, complex systems of lots of simple setups. So,
And once again, I will point people to Hbomberguy's ridiculous 3.5 hour video on Deus Ex is Fine, where they actually compare the remake with some of the decisions that Warren Spector and co made, where they ended up using, I think it was something like 15% of the design document that they'd originally written. They just threw the rest away because about a month before launch, they were like, this game isn't fun.
How do we make it fun?
Let's fix it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, a game is going to give the player some sort of experience. Now, sometimes, I mean, take something like Factorio, for example. I think that's an absolutely wonderful game, or Satisfactory if you're into the 3D version of it. Then, but it's also a great spreadsheet manager, and some people find a lot of fun optimizing a game. I don't find that sort of. I find it fulfilling if I discover something, but I'm never going to go to a spreadsheet and open up a spreadsheet in order to start playing a game.
I think the one that really got me with that was Oxygen Not Included.
Oh yeah,
which is lovely, and I got it, and it's great. And I don't enjoy it.
No,
it's not fun for me because it isn't a cute little cartoony game of explore and build and hijinks. It's a build and optimization game with cute, adorable graphics.
Yeah,
like I completely misunderstood the feeling that they were going for.
Yeah,
and actually, what they're going for just doesn't work with the way I play and the way I enjoy it and the way I think. I am not bad mouthing the game at all. The game is phenomenal. It's just not my game. I'm not sorry I bought it, but who was I wrong?
Well, I figured out, like in Minecraft when I was playing that, there's actually optimizations you can do within there, because like a piece of coal can do 8 items or something along those lines, and then you could a block of coal can do 64 items, or I can't remember if those are the exact things, and those were helpful optimizations, and you didn't have to really think about it, but you knew that if you put a block of coal in and a piece of meat, you were wasting the block of coal. So little things like that help you along with the game, but things like Factorio require a lot of optimization. And I didn't get it half right, and then your whole setup just shuts down because you didn't calculate the right thing. Oh. But I do enjoy the game still. I enjoy, for the sake of just exploring and playing. But I'd never turn to a spreadsheet to do that.
But it's very common when you're building a game, and it's happened when we're building games for courses, where we're getting to a point where it's quite stable and all the rest of it, and we realize this isn't the experience we're going for. We need to change something.
Yeah.
We've accidentally built the wrong kind of game. I mean, I can't remember which game it was where all the controls were not what you'd expect.
Yeah.
And so it's one that you and I have played together, but I can't remember what it was. But it's things like the inventory's on the wrong key and stuff like that. And it just ruins the experience of the game. The game becomes a lot more sort of a memory game than it is a fast action.
Yes, I remember I had a bad experience with not the forest, with I keep forgetting what it's called, The Long Dark, because the control system wasn't typical. And it turns out that you should probably play it with a controller. It feels like someone's ported it without understanding how PC games typically have their keyboard laid out. It threw me the first time that I think it's Call of Duty. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but don't they use the F key to use stuff? And for me, it's always been the
F key to pay respects.
Yes, I was waiting for that.
People keep doing that.
But I haven't
played Call of Duty ever, so
yeah. Well, I'm so used to E being the use key from like Half-Life days, and I'm not saying that paradigm shouldn't change over time. Otherwise, we won't be using a mouse to aim anymore. We go back to Doom 2 and try and strafe using the old.
Before that, use the cursor keys and control for fire.
Yeah, we've definitely moved on. But if you move too far away from what your users are used to, then you start to have you have a problem. You're going to have to explain things that otherwise you wouldn't have to explain.